Okay, so we're gonna be trimming plates. Remember that ideally you want your plate to be the same consistency. So you want your rim to be as stiff as the bottom. And normally that is achieved by leaving it open and uncovered for 12 to 24 hours, coming in, flipping it, and then depending on when you need to come and trim it, you're either gonna choose to wrap the rim in plastic to keep it from drying out anymore, or you might cover the entire thing. If when you feel that this has gotten stiff enough to start to trim, but if this part here is too dry, if you have the time, you can fully wrap it for about 24 hours in plastic so that it evens out that moisture. This plate is so large that I don't need wads of clay, but if you have a smaller plate, it's a good idea to have little low wads of clay that won't impede your trimming of the foot here. So I'm centered on the wheel. I put down some water and got it centered, but essentially, you know, the centering process is the same. I want to get this part right here centered, so kind of just underneath this area. When you feel like you're centered, go ahead and give it kind of a push in the middle. Another indicator that you're ready to trim is that you can, you know, apply some pressure and you'll make a mark with your finger, but you won't pull up any clay. Except for that much. You won't pull up any clay. Start by trimming the outside of that foot ring first. Remember that you're going to have to clean up your trimming because it's going to probably go outside of your splash pan. And so trimming the foot of a plate or a platter is the exact same as trimming the outside of a bowl, where you want to find the outside diameter of your foot ring first, and then go ahead and flatten the top, and then remove the inside to create the foot ring. I am gonna hop onto the top here just a minute because I've got this extra clay that's kind of making my tool jump, so I'm just gonna get that off. Remember that the foot ring to your plate, a good rule of thumb is about 2/3 of the widest diameter. And really, it just needs to support wherever the curve changes and shifts from the interior of the plate into the rim of the plate. The foot ring should really kind of follow or be right underneath where that transition happens. And that is most important in the firing stage, because if you've got your foot ring too narrow and it's not supporting the horizontal trajectory of your rim, generally your rim will fall down. If your trimmings are coming off in nice big ribbons, then you're at a really good consistency to trim. If it's coming off in shavings, like those little chocolate shavings like that, it's a little bit on the dry side. Fortunately, I don't really need to be trimming this all that much. That is my rim. This is the area that I want to be trimming. And as you can see, it comes off in ribbons, nice long ribbons. Selecting the style, the angle of your foot is just as important as everything else that you've contributed to the design so far. So make sure that you're thinking about what the interior plate looks like, what kind of foot you should be having, how smooth you want it. Do you want it to be kind of an angular shift? Do you want it to kind of flow into the foot? So I'm going to do a foot ring here where the foot flows into the rim of the plate. and that will complement the smooth interior of the plate. I like to generally, for me, again, my aesthetic, I don't like to have these trim rings on the outside of my rim. So I'm going to use a combination of tools to get rid of those. To really smooth out the surface, I'm going to use a little bit of water. It's getting a little dry there. I'm going to clean off my metal rib and simply use it to remove those trimming lines. Again, this is just because I personally don't like them on the outside of my plates. You may enjoy them and it may lend to your design, so it's a decision. It's not a requirement to get rid of them. Okay. So now I am going to flatten the entire surface before I start trimming away the interior of my foot ring. Once you start trimming away the interior and create that foot ring, you never want to have to try to level this part out again. I'll explain that a little bit better when I start to create the foot ring. So get it level now. This is usually the time right here, as I'm applying, a fair amount of pressure to this part of my foot ring, that if I do not have wads down here, that the plate might want to shift off. So it's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about my foot. It feels pretty level to me. The camera might show something different. It does have a little bit of a wobble to it, but I'm all right with that. So now I'm going to use my small trimming tool to articulate where my foot ring is going to be. Okay, so this now is going to become my foot ring. And on my first pass, I usually go from the outside towards the center with my small tool. If your plate has dried unevenly, your tool will not bite into the drier side as well as it will on the wetter side. Sometimes using this technique allows you to even out a plate that seems impossible to even out because the big tool just won't bite into that surface as well. The corner of this tool is more effective and can bite into drier clay and help to level it out. And now I'm using the flat side of the small trimming tool. So at this point I want to really make this foot ring pronounced, especially on the inside of that foot ring, because I'm probably going to switch to my large trimming tool again to really start removing some of this clay in here. And if I don't have this well articulated, I can just trim right off, and then I have to start trimming the inside of my foot ring all over again. And now my foot ring is shorter because my tool took that clay off of that surface. Notice that I'm holding my tool with two hands. My upper body is over the wheel head so that I have more control. Okay, I felt my plate just shift a little bit. I don't know if it still seems sucked in down pretty well. So getting back to why you need to even it out and then make your foot ring. If I try to take a tool to this edge right now, it's a lot harder for me to keep this tool level it's very easy to go ahead and just tilt it even a little bit, and then I've taken a little edge off of there. Tilt it this way, take a little edge off of there. And if you've ever cut your own bangs, you know, you start going crooked and then you go crooked the other way and then you go crooked the other way. My rule of thumb is once I have evened off that surface and start trimming out my foot ring, I don't go back to this surface anymore unless it's like for some really fine detail work. Going back to the outside here for a minute because I think this contour can use a little bit of retooling. Okay. So I probably, listening to it, I probably have a decent amount of clay here to work with. If you use the broad side of your tool, you're gonna have to use a lot of pressure to actually remove some clay. I use the rounded side of my large tool to get a decent bite in there. And it's a lot more efficient. And then I will turn it and go a little bit slower as I continue to articulate that foot ring, the inside of that foot ring. Now I am using the broad side of the tool to get rid of those trimming lines if that's something that you want to do. Right? By now you kind of know the different things that the different sides of your tools can do, but it's good to keep exploring those options. Okay, so, you know, how do we know if we've trimmed enough? You know, if you can't tell, if you're pressing down in the middle and there's absolutely no give, you're probably okay. But remember that plates need to dry more than a bowl does, so it might give you a false sense of security. I'm just kind of feeling this, and I think it has about 1/4 of an inch thickness right here in the center. But because the plate kind of comes up as it comes into the rim, I know that I can take a little bit more, go down as it comes into the inside of the foot ring. That said, on the outside of the foot ring, I can probably, there's really not a whole lot that I can take away there. It's pretty, you know, it's as consistent as the thrown part here. So I'm probably not going to take too much more out of that, but I might replicate this detail here on the outside of here, and I'm going to do that with my trimming tool. So I know people are apprehensive about taking taking their pieces that they finally got centered off of the wheel to make sure that you're not going to trim through them, but try to think about it this way. Would you rather take that time and have to recenter something, get the practice to recenter, or would you rather trim through the bottom and lose the entire thing? So I think the answer to that is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so I'm going to recreate that little detail. So it's kind of just a little incised line there, and then on the opposite side of it. And then I'm going to use my small trimming tool. I want to, after I've felt it, there's going to be kind of a thick spot right here, so I'm going to go ahead and trim out some more of this outside contour of my foot ring here. So that I don't have unnecessary thickness. So here again, I have my trimming lines that I don't really want to have, but I've got a strange, like I don't have the best tool that can fit in that spot to flatten that out. So I might just have to kind of be okay with having those lines there. I'm using my tool with very light pressure to just kind of get rid of the really pronounced trimming marks. And I might be able to get this with my rib here. But I could also do more damage than good at this point. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. But I am still gonna trim some more out of this part. This part is okay. I could probably take a little bit more out of the center, but it's this area here that I really feel like I could bite down and probably take another 1/8 of an inch out and then kind of feather that or taper that towards the center. Get those trimmings out of the inside of your plate. You know, it's hard to trim when you've got a bunch of extra clay in there impeding your vision, what you're doing. So I'm not taking a bunch out of the middle, I'm taking a little bit. Okay. I have a bad habit of going, I'm just going to take a little bit more and then go in too thin. So I am going to stop after this one. And then don't forget to put your unique marker. That could be your initials, could be your signature. You can also take this opportunity to use your sponge just to soften up that foot a little bit.